grandfather, a former soldier in the Chinese Imperial Army. His body had become a weapon forged through years of discipline, his mind sharpened by a deep understanding of martial philosophy. The young man was a prodigy, but what made him truly formidable was not just his skill in combat, it was his heart. The people in his village, especially the old, the sick, and the children, relied on him for protection, and he had vowed to never let them down. When word reached Lejun that a close friend, Lieutenant Zheng, had been captured and taken to the Japanese prison, he knew it was time to act. Lieutenant Zheng had been instrumental in organizing local resistance efforts, and his capture was a devastating blow to the movement. Lejun could not, and would not, allow the Japanese to break his friend's spirit or silence the resistance. With little more than the clothes on his back and the sword of his ancestors, Lejun set out alone, his resolve hardening with each step. The prison was heavily guarded, surrounded by thick walls, watchtowers, and a contingent of soldiers at every corner. A direct assault seemed impossible, but Lejun wasn't afraid. He understood the rhythms of battle in a way that few others did. The moon hung low in the sky when Lejun arrived at the prison's outskirts. The guards were changing shifts, their footsteps heavy in the muddy soil, their voices muffled by the thick air of anticipation. He moved like a shadow, unseen, his every step calculated and precise. His senses were soldiers. He had no time for strategy now, he launched himself into the fray, his fists blazing like fire. In a matter of moments, the soldiers fell, and the door was open. Inside, Lieutenant Zheng sat in a cell, his face drawn and weary, but his spirit unbroken. Lejun's eyes met his, and in that silent moment, no words were needed. The bond between them was stronger. His face pale from the long days of captivity. Yet, there was a spark of hope in his eyes that had not been there before. The liberation of the prison, the destruction of its formidable defenses, had changed something deep within him. The fire of resistance had been rekindled. The two men exchanged a brief, knowing glance. Words weren't needed. They both understood that the victory here was only a small part of a much larger struggle. "Let's move," Lejun said, his voice steady and calm, despite the chaos around him. He turned, and with his sword still drawn, he led the way toward the dense forest beyond the prison. They couldn't afford to linger. Even now, the rumbling of distant Japanese reinforcements could be. As they disappeared into the trees, a sense of clarity washed over Lejun. This raid was only a beginning, there would be more battles to fight, more lives to liberate, and more sacrifices to be made. But the spirit of his people was unbroken, and the struggle for freedom was alive. The fight had only just begun.